This is Chris J, and I'm joined by a very special guest tonight, one that I have spent many, many, many lifetimes with, my sister, Brittany. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi!
So, the topic tonight is all things past lives, parallel lives, future self, alternate universes, the whole shebang, right?
And all that stuff.
All that stuff. So we've had a couple of experiences with looking into our past lives. I am a BQH practitioner. If you don't know what that is, it's beyond quantum healing. It's kind of a modality. You know, you get into this nice, comfortable sleep state, and you get to venture into those past lives or parallel lives or even future life. So very, very interesting. I have done a couple of sessions on my sister, and I have had my own sessions done as well. So pretty interesting stuff. I feel like we kind of sat down tonight and we started talking about it. I was like, hey, it'd be a good thing to just hit record and kind of see what comes up. The conversations me and her have are out of this world and pretty awesome most of the time. So there's no telling where this is going to lead to. So you want to start telling me some things that you experienced during a session?
Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is so when I get to where I am, it feels like I'm spinning, but really I'm dancing. And I was like, that is so funny because I love to dance. And come to find out, I'm a whole freaking star. A whole star. So that's kind of my origin.
Hold on, pause there, because check this out.
All right.
During one of my sessions, I also experienced myself as a star. Now, when I first went into this space, and it was space, I couldn't quite figure out what I was. You know, the practitioner kept asking me, you know, what are you? Look at yourself. And I was like, I don't really see myself. I see an energy, you know, and then come to find out I imploded. And then the next thing that I went to, I was in, you know, a life. So that's pretty interesting.
Well, and for those of those, you know, that y'all, I know y'all don't know this, but me and Crystal are parallel, which would make a lot of sense, seeing as we were both stars, both in parallel. I can't imagine doing any life without her. And that's because she is my parallel.
So what do you mean by parallel? Because didn't you have a session one time to where I was like on the outside of you or something as this? What was that? How did the parallel concept come about? She thinking.
Yeah, like registering, buffering. I think it was in that same BQH with the stars, and it was like a legit, like that's what it showed me, like the parallel lines that, you know, we learn about in like elementary school.
Yeah.
So we were on like the parallel, as you would imagine two lines would be. I'm doing my hands like y'all can see me. So I think that's where it did come from. And now keep in mind, me and Crystal have had 10 plus lifetimes together.
Yeah.
Some being, I mean, we were male, female, fairies.
Yep.
So I mean, it's not just she's always been my sister. It's been to where we were in love. She was a male and I was a female. All kind of different scenarios, if you will.
We had another lifetime where we were sisters too.
Mm-hmm.
We had another lifetime where you was a male and I was a female. It was like in the 20s. I think I said like, what, 1918 or something?
Yeah.
In that one. I think you actually did that BQH, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot. You know what crossed my mind though about the parallel thing is that I know I've told you this, but there was this. I think it was almost. It might have been the very first session I ever had, and I was in what one would think is modern day Egypt. Um, However, in that session, I didn't say that it was Egypt. I can't remember what I said it was, but it left me with the question if I wasn't viewing like a parallel life, like the same environment, but a different name. Anyways, during that scene, there was this man that was with me. I was a woman. And, I could see all the adornments that I had on me, all the jewelry. I seen the hat, this headpiece that I had on. It was tall and pointy. And there was a guy with me, and he also had like this headpiece on. I really took note of the headpieces because I've been flipping through the history books trying to find something similar to those. And there's a couple of places that's popped up with headpieces like that. But there was this man with me, and he was my protector. And then on the outside of me and this protector was this substance that was spinning around. And I remember when we were in the middle of a BQH session, and she was, I think you were, I don't know, seeing the earth or something, and there was something spinning around it. I can't remember what the thing was, but it absolutely made me think about that, because this thing that was spinning around me and my protector was like a second layer of protection, in a sense. I don't know. That was a very, very weird, out of this world, type of experience. Like, I could tell that we had certain gifts and certain abilities that in this earthly realm now we wouldn't have. So yeah. I feel like it was maybe other dimensional, but yeah, it really made me think about that, and I've never quite figured that out, like the whole thing that cycled around us. But I think about that certain scene all the time. It stays fresh in my memory. I do feel like there's a little bit more to all of that, but I don't know. That's what it made me think of when you were talking about the parallel.
Yeah, because it's definitely not like earthly.
Yeah.
Now it's definitely a different dimension where things work very differently than they do.
Yeah. And us being stars, I mean, my goodness, like, how many times have you heard like star seed, or like the people from the stars, like, and then there's in some mythologies where you start out in the creation of a star. So like, that was just really cool to see in those sessions. I feel like that's one of the unanswered questions that we're never really going to know in this earthly realm. We can think of the possibilities, but we're never really going to know, like, where did creation start? Like, where did we come from? That sort of thing. So I mean, to actually see that. And I mean, was it our starting point, or was that just like, a resting space? Hey, I'm going to take this lifetime and go be a star, and then I'm going to implode and come try again, I don't know.
I mean, that possibly very well could be, because I mean, I also have, because this is my last lifetime, I've also seen myself in the BQH curling up in the earth and using it as a blanket to go to sleep for eons.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And resting. So, I mean, yeah, we said it's, an origin, but is that really where we actually started, or was it just one of those?
I don't know. All the possibilities, I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
I know I've been to what I feel is my home planet. Like, I've been there and experienced that, was my originality, my origin, that specific place. I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up between that and the star,
Well, and I've also seen the resting place, or the waiting
place.
I should say the waiting place, more or less. And this is where I seen, all my little dragons coming in that Aurora brought me to see. And it's beautiful. It's got like a water fountain and the greenest. Just, it is the most beautifulest thing you could ever freaking imagine. But it's a waiting place in between, like lifetimes.
Yeah. Yep.
And there again, where do you, if you're in the waiting place and you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, where do you go then?
I'm bored. Send me back to Earth.
Or I don't. Like, I just don't. I don't want to go back again. So where do you just hang out in the waiting place, or like do you hear elevator music? Like, what do you do? Like, if you don't decide to come back, where do you go then from the waiting place? I have no idea.
I don't know. Could be like other planets. I know I've read in like Dolores Cannon's work. I've read a lot of her books. And I remember in one of them it was talking about how there's teaching planets. You could go to a certain planet just to learn, connection with human, that sort of thing. So, that's a possibility too. I remember one time I went to this world. I'm just going to call it a world that had these there's no animal on earth that looks like these things, so I'm just gonna say creature. It wasn't creature like in the context of, oh, that's so scary, they were terrifying. No, it's just, there's no name to actually put to these animals, creatures. But anyways, there was this like substance running from like the mountainous area, and it was kind of like lava but not quite. I don't know why I was experiencing this, why I was seeing this, but they were like, basically these animals or these creatures were like mining that substance. So, that was pretty interesting. I do know one thing. Going in and training to be a practitioner with this modality, I never, ever thought that I would hear some of the things I've heard or see some of the things I've experienced myself. Like, I hear about a lot of people saying, they, after their session, like even if they had, what's that other one called? It's not quantum healing. Or is it? It's the one that Dolores Cannon created. Oh my God, I can't think of it right now. And then Candace McGraw, she created this BQH up under Dolores. I think it's quantum healing. I don't know. I'm getting sidetracked right now. But as people have their sessions, whether it be with BQH or the other modality with Dolores Cannon, QHHT, that's what it is. They talk about how they didn't believe in their session. Like, they thought that they were just making it up. But the thing is, to me, and I'm not here to promote myself or anything like that. Hey, I'm available if you want to have a hypnosis session. I'm down with it. But the thing about it to me is like, how could I possibly had made any of that up when prior to that, none of that stuff ever even crossed my wildest mind? You know what I'm saying? Like,
same.
Like, how do you just make up on the spur of the moment, go into this red planet where this substance and these creatures are that you've never even thought of, never even dreamed of, never, nothing. And in that moment can be in that scene under hypnosis and tell everything from the smells to the texture of things, how things look, how things feel, what you're experiencing, what you're smelling, sometimes tasting, yeah, I know that logical side of the brain. It's even tried it with me before, but I kind of put it in check. Like, are you serious? Like, I know you want to be logical about this and kind of check the imagination because, we're taught to dim the imagination down so much, but I had to kind of check myself. There's no way that one can make these things up. It might be like so out of this world that the mind just can't process it. But, like, how? I don't think that's possible.
Well, and even in mine, like, it's like she said, it's way too much detail to be like, oh, yeah, well, I just made that up. You don't
it's far too much.
Make that up because it's just way too much.
Even like the fairy life, like I could see me like making something like that up if I actually was like one of the people that have an affinity towards fairies. You know, they buy the fairy art, they, you know,
Right.
make fairy jewelry, or they draw fairies, or they have collectibles and stuff like that. But like, I've never had a draw towards fairies. I've had a fear with water and drowning, and I learned that that's why from that session, because me as that little tiny fairy was trapped in the water and actually drowned. So that explained my present day fear, you know, of that. But yeah.
Well, see, and that, you know, and that also, so the stuff that happens in the past life, we bring that with us sometimes.
Yep.
Like, for example, mine is a box. I love boxes, any kind of boxes. I walk into a store, I'm going to open all those boxes just to see what's inside. And, you know, it's in a store, so normally there's nothing. We'll come to find out in my BQH, it was a music box that my mother had gave me in that lifetime, and it got caught on fire in a house fire.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, so
That'd
that's
be me from another timeline.
could be, but that's why I always wanted to look in any box, because I brought that with me to this lifetime.
Yeah. That brings to memory this one lady I was doing her session with, and she went into the session wanting to find why she had such a fear to cross a bridge, like drive over a bridge, right? Like modern day, she was to the point to where if she seen or knew that a bridge was ahead, she would stop the car and turn around and find another route. Like, it was that extreme, her fear of the bridge. Typically ones that didn't have water underneath didn't really bother her. But the ones that, you know, had a lake or whatever up under them, you were crossing over water, she was not at all going to go over those. And well, come to find out, in a past life, guess what happened? You can imagine, right? She flipped off of that bridge, and that's how that life ended. She carried that trauma into this life, that fear. And that can be a very, very real thing.
Definitely, and that brings back, you know, like scars that are supposed to be, you know, our birthmarks in this lifetime, but it's actually a scar in the past life.
Yep. Yeah, because they say that wherever your birthmark is, that's how you died. That's the wound or whatever from how you died in a past life. Yeah. I believe that one because before I even started like diving into any of this, before I even like knew the concept of past life, I used to have these dreams a lot. And I don't know what era this was in, but it's back when they were fighting with them big long spears, right? And this dream, it was a reoccurring dream to where I'm watching this spear fly through the air, just zoom through the air. Like, it's almost like, have you ever seen in a movie where they're zooming into something that's far away, whether it be like a missile coming or whatever it is? You can even hear so much as like it breaking through the wind. You know what I'm saying? And that's how detailed this dream is. And so anyways, it comes towards me, and like I know it hits me, and then it's like lights out and I wake up or whatever. You know, the dream just ends. But I have a very, very prominent birthmark on my forehead. So to me, I'm like, oh, okay. You know, did I bring that from that lifetime? You know, because it's pretty huge. Like, I would imagine a spearhead, yeah, being about the same size as how it went in, and, you know, not to get too graphic, but like broke the skin, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it's possible.
Absolutely. And then you also have, and that's the thing about dreams, you know, there's a lot of theories on them, but I also have had the same reoccurring dream, which we found out in a BQH session, that it's actually a memory from one of those past lives where it was me and you. And so Crystal is a guard that's locked up. And I decide that I'm gonna set it on fire to try to get her out. She's a male in this lifetime. But I winded up setting the village on fire, and I'm running through the forest. And I didn't mean to set the village on fire, but I did. So I'm running through the forest. My dress is torn. And so we had to go in and work on that and like forgive myself for that and replace that with something good.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't just leave that open and open-ended. So you have to replace that. But there again, you know, that was a dream and it was a memory from a past life. So again, I still brought that with me and still held on to that guilt, and I had a hard time sleeping because of this recurring dream. And then the BQH helped us to figure out what that was and replace it with something better.
Yeah. I remember another dream too that you was having all the time. The alcoholic man, you know, running from him.
Yep.
You were having that dream a lot. And guess what? Guess who was the masculine energy in that lifetime? Me.
And you know what too, I think that, didn't I shoot you in the forehead?
Yeah, you shot me in the forehead. Oh my God, that's right.
Well, yes, I did.
So I've got two things that...
Yeah, with that shotgun.
Yeah.
I was, absolutely.
It's crazy too, because back in the day, before we talked about all this, I used to get insane headaches in the forefront of my head, in the forefront of my forehead. Basically where my birthmark is. I don't think I've had those in, many, many, many years. But that's the thing about understanding and really honing in on where these things come from. Because you're able to actually heal a little something from those experiences so that you don't have that physical pain in this lifetime.
Well, and also, sorry for circling back, but... even in that lifetime, to where you was the alcoholic
abuser,
you're like I remember this is what we were talking about with the details of the BQH. The name was Giuseppe.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, like, where would I have got, where would I have got that from? And I can even hear like the voice that I had in that lifetime saying Giuseppe. And that's exactly how it sounded. And so, I mean, they're definitely legit, and it's not just, like imagination, you know?
Yep. So, yeah, I feel like there's reasons for anything that you're, like, really experiencing in the present, I'm trying to think if I've ever actually had something to where... like a parallel type of situation was affecting me in this lifetime. Like, that would be something. Like, not only do you have, past life, and I'm using quotation marks as I say that because, I don't know if you guys have been tuning in for quite some time, but I really don't feel like time is in a linear format the way that we're taught, past, present, future. I feel like it's almost like a circle. And within those circles are like these dimensional lines. And you have so many alternate realities, so many parallel lives on different planes and different dimensions. And I mean, that's as good as I can explain it, because it's very hard for the human mind to actually grasp that concept. But if you can imagine, being on the timeline that you're on now, and then let's say that you could take a peek into those timelines, you would see one right beside you, one right beside you, one right beside you, and so on and so on and so on. And then you got all the past, present, and future happening at the same time. So I'm sure there is some sort of, connection to those parallel lives that actually affect this life too.
Yeah, because they're going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they are linear on the same timelines, and that's a lot to it's a lot to process, but that's also why we may feel them so deeply.
The only thing that comes to mind as far as like a parallel life kind of affecting me in a way, it wasn't in a negative way. I feel like not to get in a super long story, I feel like I helped the other me to heal a part of themselves, which in turn helped me also, if that makes any sort of sense. So, it's almost like, and the whole reason why I say that is because I actually believe nowadays, I used to believe in the concept of spirit guides. However, now I do kind of feel like we still have that core guide in a sense, but there's also this openness to allow for that to evolve in the way I think about that, because I actually had an experience before to where I was like laying in the bed crying, and I could hear a voice coming through talking to me. And at that time, it was a time period where I actually believed in spirit guides in that way. But fast forward a couple years prior to that, I was laying in the bed and I was doing some shadow work, like trauma work, and I was reaching back in my imagination through time and space to that me that was crying in the bed, and I was speaking to her. And then it dawned on me, oh shit. Like, I got goosebumps. Like, that was me. I thought at that time it was a spirit guide, but it was actually me. So that's super interesting. It also calls into mind, I don't know about you guys, how you were growing up, if you were like really open and receptive to like messages coming through and stuff like that. But, there were times when I was little when I could hear a voice trying to comfort me and trying to talk to me. And as I've gotten older and went through the process of healing internally and healing my inner child, I started talking to myself. I would go back to that time frame that was bothering me, something that I needed. I would figure out and assess the situation, like something that I needed. You needed not to feel alone. I'm here. I'm here for you. You're never alone. But thinking back on those experiences, I'm like, but I heard that then. I heard somebody comforting me. I heard somebody saying, I'm here for you. You're not alone. That sort of thing. So I don't know, that really broadened my view on the whole topic of spirit guides too.
I mean, that's a really good concept. Now, I know my head spirit guide, I'm not really sure what she is, but her name is Aurora.
Yeah.
I've met her in my BQH sessions more than once. Every time, actually, she greets me and she's very excited to see me. And again, I couldn't imagine this lady. But she's so happy and so motherly, and she is the head of, I guess you could, I'm not really sure, because now I look back on it and I'm like, after you saying that, I'm like,
Like, is that you in the future?
Was that just me?
Ooh, like, is that your higher self? You know how we have this version of like our higher self that we can always be connected to, like, is that your version of your higher self?
Right. And does it happen? I mean, could it happen just subconsciously and you not even be aware and not even have to go through time and space to get to that?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, if you really think about it, during the hypnosis section, you are going through time and space,
True.
So it would be the same concept. But it also calls into mind a question like, we were having a conversation earlier about the collective unconscious and the archetypes. Like, what if there's like some sort of pyramid to this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, she's over a collective of, certain beings. Let's not even say humans, but like beings. What if she's some sort of, or like, there is an Aurora archangel,
right? Absolutely.
What if that, I don't know. Maybe that's something that needs to be explored further in another BQH.
Yeah, and maybe she's and some may call her guardian angel, quote quote.
Yeah, but you know what? If so, but like, let's say that is the highest version of you. That is your higher self. And you're kind of beamed down here on this earth and living out in all of these fragments across all kind of different parallel lives. And she's like that main source. That would still be a collective archetype, just to think of it in that way. and like, and all of yous are fragments of her. This is kind of mind blowing to even think about this stuff, And in other words, wouldn't you yourself be the archetype or the angel or the guardian angel or the, that?
Right, because you do have fragments of yourself. I've met one.
Yeah, for sure.
I've met, I think that little girl that just come up and hugged me was one of my fragments. But I've definitely met a fragment. You've met a fragment of yourself.
Yeah.
And it is like you can absolutely be your true, absolute self with no kind of mask. You just feel it.
Yeah.
You just feel it.
Let me ask you this. In the presence of Aurora during that session, did you feel that sort of frequency, like you could just 100% be yourself, or did you look at her and view her as like grander than you?
She didn't make me feel like she was grander. She was so happy to see me that I feel like it was welcoming home a part of herself.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you are actually her, which goes back to the whole concept of us actually being the spirit guides all along.
Right. They're even the stars, quote, like you said, it's more like energy, because it's not like I had a physical form.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just kind of me dancing up there, and I, in space. So that would make actually way more sense for us to be from a different dimension, if you will. You know what I mean?
That's a lot.
It is. It is a lot to process. It really is.
I don't think I've ever met that portion of me that's like, the highest version of myself. I don't think I've ever actually met that person. I met something pretty close, like my mother healer type of energy that I integrated. She was from a quote unquote past life. We kind of helped each other heal in this lifetime and in that lifetime, but I feel like she was more like another fragment of me.
So did you feel like she was grander than you, or you?
No, not at all. I felt like I felt excitement for sure, just getting to know her. Here's the thing, is that when she first started stepping in, I knew that this was still during a time to where I was like, I communicate with these. I have to say other parts of me now, but I communicated with my spirit guides, right? And so this was during a time where I knew for sure, like, a new spirit guide was stepping forward. She had a different tone of voice. She had a different frequency. She relayed the messages different from anyone I had ever known or, worked with, in a sense. So I knew somebody new was stepping in, but I couldn't quite figure out what she was trying to tell me. It's almost like she spoke a different language, for one. Not only in an audible way, but like her symbols and stuff were completely different. So I couldn't quite understand, how to communicate with her. So I wound up having a BQH session to get to know this other fragment of me, this spirit guide. And she gave me quite a lot. She told me I would be working with the essence of fire, and that led me down a whole path of doing a Tibetan ritual of soul recalling. And I really got to learn the element of fire and the essence of fire. But yeah, I didn't ever feel like she was like grander than me. I felt like she was an external me, and I never looked at spirit guides as something, more than me or, better than me, because they know, they know better. I guess I've always had this feeling that God is simply meant to help guide you in the best way that they think they can. Are they always going to be right? Am I always right? No. Are the other fragments of me AKA spirit guides, are they always right? Heck no, but together, that's power. That's power right there. And along the ways, like every time I've learned this about myself and learned these fragments of me, there's an integration that takes place. So it's almost like, two becomes one type of concept going on, and I take on this certain energy of that being. So yeah.
I think that would definitely make sense too, because you remember when I was dating the one before this one, and I heard that's him. Well, I thought it was like, hey, that's him, that's the one, this and that. Come to find out, yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's him, all right.
Yeah, but exactly, that's him. But it wasn't what I thought.
You're right.
It was.
Yep.
And in the voice that it came in, it could have been you or me.
Right.
To be honest with you, in a different timeline, because we knew what this self didn't know.
Yep.
In this timeline.
Yep.
So, and there again, I would think that it's all happening at the same time.
You know what that kind of makes me think about is like, let's say that was you in that past life. Let's say that was you, and you was like connecting across time and space to you now and saying that's him. Like maybe she was in a dream, maybe she was in hypnosis, for all we know. But I've thought about this before, like helping each other out type thing. And this actually aligns with another thing. I was reading the Nostradamus text with Dolores Cannon, and through those books, and she also posed the question of, is Nostradamus telling us the future, or are we reaching back through time and space, and telling him the future? Because he was asking, and they were doing this via the QHHT, right? So, this was under hypnosis as this was actually happening. And it wasn't like Nostradamus was in the chair, but it was a client of hers, and they were going back through the client, and Nostradamus was connecting to them. So it's very interesting that he was asking questions about the future also, or they would tell him certain things. So, he was one of the great, psychic astrologers, that sort of thing, that left all of these stanzas as, and a lot of people interpret those as him predicting the future, right? If you have never heard of him, you have got to go look him up. But the fact is that kind of makes me think of that, like this play that we have with these, other, and who knows, like he could have been another fragment of the client that was laying in the chair, and that just never came up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and they were actually helping each other in some form or fashion. So very, very interesting stuff there. But I really believe that we reach across the barriers of time and space and help each other. Whether you want to call it angels, spirit guides, or just simply fragments of yourself, like there's something going on there.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to name it, there is some kind of, there's always a balance, period.
Yep.
And no matter what you do, feminine, masculine balance, there's balance to everything.
Yep.
So that would definitely make sense to me, to go either way.
Yep.
For
sure. Yeah. Well, I guess this about wraps it up. We definitely appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see if we can ever get our special guest back on the show to have some more of these talks.
Yay!
Good night.
Bye. Thanks for having me.